All right, recording in progress. We are live, and I can't wait to introduce y'all to today's guest. On today's episode, alongside co-host Bianca Leger, we interview an artist who specializes in drawing and paintings, a breathwork facilitator, and an integrative herbalist. She is currently engaged in Cosmologia, a series of mandalas and book comparing the cosmic wisdoms of the world's ancient civilizations. Welcome to the Winner's Circle, Danielle Caners.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Absolutely. And we had a great chat before this episode. And we just kind of spoke about how the goal of these episodes is to really uplift, inspire, and empower all the listeners on their heroes' journeys. And the first question we start everything off with is a very positive one. And that is, Danielle Caners, what do you love about your world right now?
I love being able to just like study endlessly. I think that's kind of what I identify with amidst everything, is student of life. And I love the access that we have to just like teachers from all parts of the world and all ages, and just being able to take that all in and then share it in so many ways, and the connections that that brings with people too. Like you kind of find your tribe, and I'm finding, my tribe that resonates with all these things. Just being able to share.
Amazing. And as we get to know you more, I mentioned the bio, there's many hats that you wear. And one way we get to know our guests is by examining their mission. And that is their mission here in this reality plane. And that mission isn't all that they do, whether that be their profession, their personal life, and everywhere in between. And a mission can be always changing. But right here, right now, Danielle, what is your current mission here in this city?
I feel like I have many, and there's like layers of them. But right now, it's kind of piggybacking on the last answer. It's taking in all of the beautiful fields and modalities and teachings and sharing them in the most palatable way to people, and sort of like catalyze new awakenings for everyone else, and like the start of their journeys, like introducing people to mushrooms through art and many things like that. Like that's just one form it takes. And I really resonate with like a great life involves constant growing and constant service too. So just constantly learning and making new breakthroughs, and then also offering up those boons from the hero's journey, as we were talking about. So yeah, it's kind of like a two-part.
So is your art, is your art your first way of teaching what you learn about? Because I was looking at your art, it's incredible. For anyone who has seen it, it is so breathtaking, and it's so full of details. You can stare at one portrait and find so many details. Was that how you teach about everything you learn?
Thank you. Yeah, I would say that's kind of my pillar, and everything else is built around that pillar. So that's or like a battery, or however you want to see it. It's definitely my first modality. Yeah.
Cool.
So let's examine that first modality. And as Bianca mentioned, it's truly mesmerizing. Like, I can't believe these creations that come from you. And I was very surprised to learn that these have been being expressed from you from a very early age. You're drawing as, I think, like I saw your drawings like a 12-year-old, and they're like also just like massively incredible. And you'd think what I thought when I first saw these images, okay, these have to be like psychedelic inspired or plant medicine inspired of some sort, because they're so elaborate and wonderful. But then you're drawing these at age 12. Like, let's just examine the birth of this artist within you. When did this talent emerge, and how did it develop?
That's, yeah, multifaceted as well. It's definitely been with me the whole way through. My mom would say I was drawing before I could speak. That's kind of my first way of communicating. And I'm super thankful that she just recognized that I really enjoyed it and just kept giving me paper and pencils and everything I could want as a kid. So I was able to build on it and got some encouragement. So yeah, big gratitude for that, because not everyone receives that as a kid. And it sort of grew with me. And I used to get in trouble at school all the time because I would prioritize that over work. Like, I would still get the schoolwork done, but I'd be like writing a visual novel on the side of the class and actually get pulled out of class because I was doing that. And it, yeah, there's all these like hilarious times where I'd get in trouble, but the passion was there, and it just was what I loved doing, and I kept exploring. And then what you're saying is super true, is before I even knew what like weed was or anything, I was drawing these super psychedelic, trippy creatures and motifs. And I don't know if there's such a thing as past lives, maybe that would explain certain things. And it sort of just grew from there. Eventually, I started seeing the larger world of like visionary art and all of that, and some pieces started to make sense. And growing out of school, I resisted it being a career because people were encouraging that, and that I have this natural stubbornness of not being told, like not wanting to be told what to do. And eventually, after I had a chance to take my time and really decide what I wanted to do, I took a year off and actually immersed myself in the health industry. Then I decided to try art university. And then I really learned discipline and all of that. And then I dropped out to learn on my own terms. So that's kind of how it all built, but it's been with me in a big way for most of my life, with very small breaks in between.
Wow, where do we start from that, Bianca? One thing that called to me, that a thread that I want to unravel, well, there's many from that, what you just said, but is dropping out of art school. And I feel that's like a very courageous move. And that's stepping outside, like that safe, known world of having this paper that says, I am an artist, and creating your own canvas and doing what you wish and writing your own story as you wish. So let's just talk about that decision to stop art school. After you took that big leap of faith to even start that, then I'm good, I'm gonna do this on my own terms. So let's talk about that. I really admire that.
That's a big one, but I love to share about it. So when I first applied, I applied to the only school I wanted to go to, and it was in Vancouver. And that's part of what drew me there, was Vancouver itself, and just being fully independent and plugging into that city. And so I often say that was the best decision ever. And the other best decision ever was leaving a year and a half later. So the first year was awesome. Like I said, I learned all this discipline. I tried new modalities. I was learning animation and design. And for the first time ever, had creative peers, which was really, really amazing. And something I still miss. That was one of the hardest things to leave, was the peers. And it felt like summer camp, because everyone is making art, and it's so immersive and fun. And it's just all art, and there's a clear path. Like you're saying, it's like that, the paper, you just do this clear path and then you get the paper, and life is easy because the decisions are largely made for you. And then a lot of people find that once they're out, it's like, oh, now what? There was a few things that didn't work for me, and a big part of it is postmodernism. There's this whole sort of a loss of craftsmanship in the art fields, and a push towards the more career-oriented arts like design and animation and illustration. People in purely fine art kind of get stuck in the cracks where they don't learn craftsmanship, they don't learn business. I'm not saying that across the board, but in many cases. And I wasn't allowed also the time to explore other things like what I have to say, because the art is the tools of how to say it, but without learning what I even have to say, then it all is for nothing. So part of leaving was to start traveling and just developing why I'm here and like figuring that out. And also just being able to study craftsmanship, even though I didn't know where I'd find that, because if I couldn't find it in university, where would I find it? I like it. There's so many stories that go with that as to how I came to that conclusion. But I basically came to the point where I'm not learning business, I'm not learning craftsmanship. I love the peers, but if I don't move on, I'm wasting my years. And secretly, one of the professors gave me a nod and said, yes, you're making the right decision. So that was an extra, like, kind of like a surreal moment. He was a pillar in that school too. So it was a big decision, but it was right. And the paper, you don't need the paper. Like, I'm not a doctor, I'm an artist, and the work speaks for itself, right? Tons of people have papers and don't do anything with it. I remember one time I was at a clothing store speaking to the till person, and she's like, "Oh, I graduated from that school," and that kind of spoke for itself. And yeah, I think that's the key, is just for fields that you don't need the paper, go in as long as it serves you, and then recognize if it's not serving you anymore.
Yeah. It's super inspiring to hear how you knew, like, okay, I got enough, and to get that confirmation from somebody who is in a position of maybe like perceiving, you know, like witnessing, like, you have the talent and you can definitely do this. That's so good to just have that confirmation. So what after that, how did you begin kind of being your independent artist? How do you start that journey? What kind of doubt do you start having? Did you have any? And how do you begin that journey? Like, it's like you have all this path laid out. Like you said, you go in school, they tell you do this assignment, do this next one, you do all the steps, and it's all nice. But then you're on your own path and you don't see it in front of you. So where do you start from there?
100%. That's a very good question. Yeah, all the doubts. I didn't know where it was all going to go, like how I would even make an income, any of that. I was lucky enough to get a few. Part of what reaffirmed my decision too, I was getting a few jobs. The artist path is inconsistent, so sometimes they come and go. But I was getting a few jobs, and it actually cleared time for me to address them and to take them on, the leaving part. And then after that, I decided I was really drawn to India and Thailand. And so I just decided I'm going to go for 3 months to India and Thailand. And I actually spent many hours on the beach, just like my head spinning, not knowing what I was doing and what to do next. I was considering maybe continuing school and university in New York instead. However, that's an immense debt that I was considering, immense. I had been accepted there. I went through that whole process, but yeah, so I had this like head spinning moment. Do I continue elsewhere or not? What am I doing going to India? And like, I also went to China in that time. So I'm just trusting my gut in that sense, though. I decided to go, and it was a multifaceted experience. I learned a lot of things. I kind of tried on many things. I went to like a seed bank and natural farm. I went to a artist residency, yoga ashram, like all the things, and traveled all across that vast country. And I ended up there and never went to Thailand because I just loved it. And then I went to like Montreal because I wanted to stay with an eco village and learn from that. And then I discovered mushrooms. So it was kind of this totally non-linear, I just feel like exploring this, so I'm going to go. And I think that was a very unclear form of education in of its own, is this free form exploration. of what's fascinating. And when I was in Montreal, I was making like $0, and thankfully I had saved up a lot. But definitely at the back of my mind, there's this, how is this all gonna work? Because especially traveling, like it's hard to establish anything while you're traveling and moving around. So I picked up like a couple small things here and there, but it was very small and didn't make sense to me. And it wasn't until I found my way back to Winnipeg and rooted down and started to take in everything I had just learned and start to build something concrete so that I could kind of put it all together. And I had my partner at the time really helped me sort of say, hey, you've got all these things. You just have to sort of organize them and put them into your art and start developing this. So yeah, there was a lot of unknowns the whole way through. I even wrote a book in India and I decided not to publish it, for example, because I didn't want that to be my first book in the end. I had to I put in a lot of time into it and then just decided, nope, this will be a part of a future project, but not the whole. So, like starting projects and letting them go, and things didn't click for a long time, but it was this exploration and honoring that.
I love how you're driven. I love how you're driven by your feelings, like your gut instinct and your intuition. And it is so unpredictable. Sometimes we don't know where we're going to. Did you feel in alignment the whole time you were traveling? Like, did it feel like the travels you were doing, you felt right? Or there were times where you're like, what am I doing here? Did you ever feel like kind of lost where you're at, or you felt aligned?
There were a few times. That there were some like hiccups along the way where I think I kind of got like caught up in something that wasn't my truth. So for sure, there were times that threw me out of that, and then it was that process of coming back to that center. So multiple times.
It's useful too, I guess, to kind of know like, oh wait, that doesn't feel right, and then reassess. That's
like the vantage point. Go on.
So how did you stay aligned with your center? What are some practices that you use then and that you continue to use today to stay in alignment with your center and knowledgeable where that is? Because life is about about ups and downs, and if we don't have a North Star, if we don't have something guiding our path, like it's very easy to get thrown off when things get rough.
100%.
And uncertain.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think back then I didn't really have tools. I mean, maybe my art indirectly, zoning into the art is like a form of meditation. But now I feel like I'm way more equipped. The breath work was a turning point for me, for sure. Having that as part of my personal unfolding and as a practice I can tune back into. Fitness, I do it daily now. I find that my mental clarity and everything is just so much better when I get my little workout in. Meditation, I've been practicing between many different ones. I'll usually try one on for a few months very diligently so that I can learn it thoroughly, and then I kind of I keep building on them and learning from all the different practices. And quarterly goals is a big one for me. Quarterly goals is one I incorporated a few years ago. That's so good. I have this beautiful like page. It's like sacred to me because that's a 3-month window those are the core things I'm working on, and they're multifaceted, and some of it's even like personal work. So that keeps me really dialed in to a narrow enough window, but broad enough to be significant. And then I've got like a big mind map and life picture too. So
so let's talk about those quarterly goals. It's very fascinating to me. How often do you look back upon that and talk about the flexibility you have with those goals as well? as well as a theme that I've already picked up on, is your ability to let go of things. So even though if you set it as a goal 3 months ago, if that's not if you're not feeling that, like letting that go. So just talk about those goals, how often you turn back to that, and how do you stay flexible with it, and how do you let go of goals that no longer serve you, or place them for a different time? Was that book?
Yeah, definitely flexibility is necessary. Cosmologia, for example, I had intended it to be a 1-year project. We are on year 4. So some of it's just, I don't know what I don't know. And some of the things that I'm taking on, I'm unrealistic about frequently. And especially the unknowns, like not having done a project like that, I don't know all the pieces and all that it'll require of me. Plus all the facets that are going on simultaneously. So definitely the timelines are relatively flexible, and they need to be, and I don't dwell on that too much. I usually, how do we break this down? I usually like to focus on a reward at the end too, just regardless, because any progress is progress, right? Yeah, how to dial into it fully and be flexible. Is that the main question? The letting go, I don't do a lot of now. Like once I say yes to something, I'm pretty much 100%. It's just sometimes it takes way longer. And then the quarterlies just helps me break it down into all the pieces needed and keep my eye on the prize. And then I'll just like put them onto the next month if it didn't work out this time.
I think that's so important, just really appreciating the progress, the process that has got you there, rather than being so destination oriented. Okay, this book had to be finished in 1 year, and if I don't get it finished in 1 year, I'm a total failure and I'm gonna hate myself every day.
I'm the biggest failure if that's true.
And that's just like a simple mindset shift is from being destination oriented to really appreciating that process, and that really like changes things, and just getting just a little bit better every day. And it doesn't have to be leaps and bounds. It should be a tiny little thing. Like, what's that say?
I have a card in my desk. The journey/process is the reward.
Absolutely.
I just saw it as I was creeping your Instagram. I saw it as a caption under one of your pictures, and I loved it. It's such a good reminder, because we do get so focused on our goals. And I think, yes, it's super valuable to know when we want to end something and give ourselves little objectives. But to remember to enjoy the whole entire time is
100%.
so important.
And like you can recommit multiple times throughout, right? And finding that joy, because if I'm not joyful, it's just like super constricted and it's not going to be good anyway. So that time's a big theme for me, actually. Working with time to be at peace and to enjoy that process.
Could you tell us a little bit about that project, Cosmologia?
Yeah.
How was that project born? What is it like? Because if for the people who haven't seen your art yet, it is very intricate. It is very complex. It's stunning, but it's so full of details. And when I look at it, I can just imagine the kind of studies that went behind it, because you see almost like godly characters or mythological characters. And I don't know much about it. So I would love to hear, how did that project come to life?
Totally. It's my most ambitious project yet. I haven't committed to a series ever before, because I love darting all over the place and, exploring many fields. So this has been an amazing way to really have a cohesive story over multiple years. What it is basically is it was inspired. I had some friends that are pretty immersed in astrology and mythology and all of that. And it sort of started as a very small concept, and it just kept growing in my mind over the course of a few weeks. And I started to realize there was something bigger there, and it almost was demanding to come through. The way creations come through is very interesting in of its own. So it started just, as you're saying, a lot of research, like a year of research, probably poring over tons of books and lectures. Some of them are very old. And it's an antidote to the really watered down astrological readings, like in the newspaper, just based on your sun sign and all that. It's actually bringing, there's a huge ancestral body of wisdom tied in with that language that's far beyond a casual reading. And it's a whole way of viewing the world and how everything is interconnected and has stories to tell and lessons to learn. So the gods, like you're saying, like the Greeks and the Romans and many other traditions would see, they were viewing the planets, and they would basically create characters that embodied what they were observing based on that planet's behavior. So like Jupiter is this exuberant, sort of big and bold and positive planet, and Saturn is more like the constriction, like father time, like closing in. And there's whole personalities and like cosmic sagas tied with all their interactions. So my goal with this project is to see that and see it from all the lenses, like the Chinese, the Aztecs, the Vedic Indian traditions, our traditions here with our Native American populations. They have their own, and sort of seeing all of the beautiful ways people have interpreted the same cosmos. And there's a lot of parallels.
Wow.
And so I created these 12 mandalas, and what I'm not sharing as much right now, but I'm currently working on, is there's a whole wheel where each of those mandalas is going to fit into. So I'm calling it a super drawing, and it's going to be like drawings within drawings where they all fit in. And that's why it needs to be a book too, because hundreds of drawings preluded these mandalas too. I have like sketchbook full and beyond. And I want to bring it all into a book so people can see not just the stories behind them, but also the creative process. I think they're both valuable. So they need a home. And I'm working to get that as a Kickstarter. I'm putting an ambitious goal out there of launching in April.
Mm-hmm. Wow, I can't wait to see this project continue to develop. It sounds so amazing. And from what we've had a glimpse of, yeah, wow, this is all I could really say. Let's talk about creations. How do creations come through you, whether that be art or writing and everywhere in between? How does that process look like to you?
Multi-year process. If either of you have seen Big Magic or the book, read it, the book Big Magic by Elizabeth Gilbert, I feel like she kind of
downloaded
it. Yes.
I just downloaded it this morning because I was scrolling through your Instagram. I see that you've been listening to it, and I haven't read that one from Elizabeth Gilbert yet. So I just started it. So yeah, perfect. Sorry, go on.
Yeah, you're in for a good ride.
Yeah.
I feel like she puts into words things that I've known and understood for a while, and she just kind of summed it all up in this beautiful book. But she sees it as the ideas almost like possess the person, and they want to come through. The big magic wants to come through a certain individual, a certain creator, and it's up to that person if they want to go for that ride or not. Through thick or thin, right? Because that ride may be filled with highs and lows, disappointments, rewards, all of the above. So if that person takes it on, then that big magic's coming through. And if not, she's seen it go to someone else. So the idea may actually travel over to someone else. So I totally resonate with that. I have a book. It's getting really thick. It's a book I've had going since 2017. And it has about 10 years worth of big magic that needs a home. And it comes to me in different times. Like recently, it wasn't that recent actually, but for example, I had a sweat lodge ceremony, and one of the ideas that I had, just sort of a whole new layer of it came through in that time unexpectedly. And this happens quite frequently where I'll just be doing things and it's sort of like the puzzle starts to reveal itself more and more. And these projects, yeah, usually need a few years of that before they can finally hit a final, like a final canvas. And there's more and more drawings are happening in that process, and a lot of them need research. So they sort of live with me, and it's a bit overwhelming because there's a lot of them, but they live with me every single day. And it's sort of this, it's an interesting process because yeah, they're very much here with me and very much active even when they're not. So I don't know if that sums it up, but it's a very big process.
Mm-hmm. Did you ever resist the call? Or actually, you said you were doing art like ever since childhood, but did you ever have resistance to an inspiration you got?
So far, no. I actually have seen that the ones I've had resistance to are other people's requests of me that I said yes to when they weren't true for me.
Okay.
Yeah, imagine little friends. The magic commissions are the ones where they align with what I want to say anyway. But in terms of the big magic, I find that the ones that come knocking and the ones that spark something in me are usually ones that are meant to come through. Every so often, they'll just fade away, like more than be resistant or more than me resisting them, they'll fade away if they aren't meant to come through. But usually there's a point where I know, like, okay, this one's got to happen. There's one that's coming through that I have no idea like how I could even accomplish that, but we'll see.
I love that. It's so inspiring.
So how do you balance the doing, so the creating, with allowing time just to be an inspiration of what is?
Such a good question. That's definitely a big one. I've been asked that before, and I feel like it could be interpreted that I'm always doing in some ways, but it starts to feel like it's always being in a strange way. So I think it feels like doing when I'm pushing time, there's time again. And it feels like being when I'm in the flow and I'm like beyond time. And part of the being is my morning practice too, where I don't, okay, sometimes I fail at this. Sometimes I jump onto like business right away. But when I'm doing it right, my morning practice makes sure I'm just being before doing anything in the day. And I try to not touch my phone or anything until that is done. And I feel like starting that way really keeps it zen, because being self-employed means I usually don't have weekends. And yeah, it can easily spill into too much, but it's all things I want to be doing too. So it's that balance of this is joyful nonetheless. And I think part of the being is also occasionally, going to a festival and sharing my work where you and I met. Like I can just actually fully be there and just enjoy people and nature and all of that, and being with people in general, being also. So yeah, I think it's a big break.
Absolutely. No, that's definitely my observation, because whenever I spend time with you, like you're deep in the being, and it's like surprising to me that you have all these doings, like kind of on like where I'm not seeing it, because yeah, like when I'm around you, you're present, and yeah, you're in that being deep.
Thank you. You as well.
So thank you. So let's talk about what have you learned about on your journey about time? Time, what is that?
I feel like it's a big theme this year. Like I'm still in it. Time has been one of my biggest like battles, I think. Uh, and I'm almost seeing it as like a character that I'm trying to repair a relationship with. Because I think because there's all of the things, like I'm so excited to study these things and to create all these things and to share my healing practices. There's this like this sort of tug of war between the just allowing it to go at the pace that it needs to and then wanting it to go faster. So I feel like I'm in a process, like in the right now, sort of in a chrysalis of moving beyond pushing the time and being in that state of sort of like surfing it and being able to like I know deeply just based on a felt sense that once I can get there, everything's just going to happen faster anyway because I'm not so concerned with it. I think it's the concern with it that creates that constriction again and actually is an energy leak and causes like slow art because I'm just kind of like not fully in it because I'm in the time and pushing time. So I think breath work is one of the ways of getting beyond it and the meditation and all that because it's a moment of just being and not accomplishing anything linear. And I think part of it's just deciding too. Like I've decided that that's a relationship I'm repairing right now. And I don't know where I get it from. It's probably my parents. I don't know. It's probably society too. Like we're a time-driven society, like a faster, more instant, all of that. And I think part of sort of mastering this life is transcending that societal conditioning so that we can operate on our timeline.
Yes. Yeah. Wow. I can resonate. I relate with that in the sense of even just having visions and things we look forward to, trusting that they're happening, but then having to be patient and just not forcing things is definitely a practice. Yeah. It's very interesting to hear your take on it. I've never heard of somebody speak of time as being a character like that. It's fascinating the way you illustrate that. I love it. Yeah. It's
So
definitely an interesting relationship.
So let's talk about your breathwork practice. You're a breathwork facilitator, and I've had the honor and pleasure to take part in one of your ceremonies. Just a few, what is time? I don't even remember. Like a month ago, or sometime in my life, I've taken your breathwork class, and it's such an amazing experience. So let's delve into that chapter. When did breathwork come into your life? How did you become a facilitator, and everywhere in between?
Came into my life about 8 years ago was my first introduction, and it was through a friend's mother. And I had this one experience, and I wouldn't say it wasn't like this crazy profound experience, but it was an experience that left a big question mark and a desire to learn more about this. I was just like, I left thinking, holy kid, there's a whole world here. And I definitely want to explore this further. But I was moving away from Vancouver at that time. So I didn't know where I would find access to it. And I finally, years later, my mom and I, we were planning a trip. And we decided probably Costa Rica. And I had learned about this breathwork retreat. So I figured, wow, I can explore breathwork and have a trip with my mom if she's interested. So I pitched it to her, and I have a very cool mom that's into this stuff. So we went for it. And there was all this birth related material tied to that course. So it was pretty hilarious actually to have my mother there. There was a point where we were like role playing parents in the room, and one of the guys came over. He's like, I was your mom, or like, I think he told her, he's like, I was you, because he role played my mom. That experience was so profound and definitely a pivotal point in my life, where I think it's a combination of Costa Rica, the people that were there, and the practice. It tied me in with the feminine in such a big way. I had previously not been connected with my feminine. It tied me in with expression, my voice. I had like huge white light experiences. Like everything fundamentally started shifting then. And I was only there for the first half of the training. The second half was intended as the facilitation training. So I was there for, there was still facilitation training involved, but it was mostly a personal experience. And then I was leaving, and there was just something in me. I was like, no, I want to finish this. I think I'm supposed to be facilitating. It just suddenly felt so natural. Even the first time I was facilitating someone out there, it was so natural. It felt almost like just remembering how to do that rather than learning it for the first time. And I thought I would travel and go and learn with them again. And at the same time, I really deeply wanted someone more scientific and like going into the nitty-gritty of the breath work, more of like a masculine approach, because this was a very feminine. And I found it through just like insane synchronicities. A teacher was coming through to Winnipeg and took us on a 1-year full arc training that had so many extra nuances in it, including trauma sensitive training, which I think is so important nowadays. If we're going to take people into that vulnerable space and open up the nervous system, all of the stuff we're carrying, it's important to understand how all of these things that we carry can present and how to help people navigate them. So it's just been this incredibly rich journey, and it's constantly amazing me what breathwork is capable of, and both as a tool for myself personally and also being able to offer it with people. It's like a constant blessing, and it's kind of like one of those like pinch me moments, because it almost feels like, how does this exist? How is the human body able to generate this experience for itself just by manipulating the breath? Because like calling it breathwork is so this is conscious connected breath work for anyone that's familiar with that. It's a specific form, and it's not like pranayama. It's not like Wim Hof breathing. It's more of shamanic type journey. I wouldn't call it shamanism per se, but it takes people on an inner journey. And
is it anything like holotropic breathing? Is it a little bit like that?
Yeah.
So you breathe intensely for a certain period of time, like reactivating your nervous system. Is that what it is?
Yeah, it doesn't have to be intense per se. Sometimes it looks intense depending on the person. The most important is it's circular. So you close the gaps between the inhale and the exhale, and it's rhythmic, and it's generally a little bit more elevated. It can be more or less elevated for some people, but it's rhythmic. And it's surreal.
That's what I experienced. So I did a 90-minute breath session. It was actually like 2.5 hours, but 90 minutes was just the actual breathing, where we breathe in and let it out, breathe in, let it out under the sun. And I had like a truly divine experience where I felt in connection with all things. And I think I had like when you said white light experience, so whatever that is, I think I had that. So can you get into what is that white light experience, and why are there such profound healings and knowings people are having from these just breathing without the use of drugs? It's just breath. It's literally your own supply, and I was brought to like multiple dimensions and left with such deep teachings. What's going on there?
I think we're still unpacking what's going on there. It's not something that can be scientifically studied per se, at least not very easily. Some people, I hear it a lot, they compare it to ayahuasca, and I would definitely say the teachings have been as profound, if not more, for me personally. What happens if this is my interpretation and based on some things I've heard, some things I've observed, the breath is our only automatic function that we can intentionally manipulate. So like our heart, our breath, these are all automatic, but we can manipulate the breath. And by working with the breath, it changes everything. It changes the nervous system, the circular system, all of the systems. It actually changes, I believe, the way our mind is working, whereas normally we're probably more in the thinking mind, whereas this takes us more in the feeling mind. So that's already one important switch. It gets us, once people can get into that sweet spot, some people have more trouble actually getting out of the thinking mind, and that's part of their journey. And part of the medicine too is like sticking with it long enough, because our thinking minds are aggressive sometimes in terms of they want to stay on. But when we slip back into the feeling mind, and it's opening the nervous system. So when we open the nervous system and the feeling mind, it actually allows all of this stuff that we've sort of shoved under in order to be functional day to day. And that can start from childhood, womb, beyond. It allows it to rise up. And if it's held with grace, it can move through, sometimes dramatically, but sometimes very, very gracefully, and everything in between. And once it moves through, there's room for bliss and just this pure space, which is what you're talking about, this space of just existence. And I feel like that's our natural innate state when we're not extra complex with all of the life things, all of the experiences and baggage that we carry. So it's almost like putting down the baggage so that we can experience that. And I believe that space is so healing to the whole nervous system. Like it actually brings this profound healing to the body, even just to access that for a little bit. And that can help to train us to different ways of existing in the world, to be more responsive, to be less reactive. And it can also tune us in, like even with our gut, like with the breath, we're massaging all of our organs. So it's tying our gut too, which is our second brain. Like people are finding there's so many microorganisms there that directly send signals to our brain. So we're also connecting the body more fully. So it ties us in with the gut. It ties us in with higher knowing. People can get creative insights or downloads. It's so multifaceted, the realms, like you're saying, the realms people can go. But I think it's reducing the noise in the system so that you can really hear everything that's possible in this human life.
And
it's
from what I
fascinating.
From what I found, that
Like,
what is possible is infinite and timeless.
Totally.
In all ways.
Totally. Yeah.
And once we get
sorry, like I wanted to relate that with an experience I had about breath work, because I don't have a lot of experience with it, but I hear about it so much. And I practiced the holotropic breathing for like on my own, and I had a lot come up and it was intense. But is this something you practice on the daily? Or do you do breath work every day? Because I don't do that right now. I'm curious to know. Is that something I might benefit from doing probably every day?
Great question. I would say a full-blown breathwork experience, because usually like Derek was saying, they're an hour and a half, the breathing, and usually we like to create a container of like 2.5 to 4 hours to do the whole thing. I wouldn't necessarily do that every day.
Yeah,
those are kind of the big download experiences. But you can do like breathwork microdoses every day to tune your system. There's different practices that you can even use the same circular breathing in small doses. And I do different forms of that pretty much every day. that just, yeah, tunes us in. And even actually the alternate nose breathing, it's not breath work in the same way, but it's a super grounding, nervous system calming breath. So there's tons of different ways that, yes, breath work can be a part of your everyday practice. And then these bigger doses are something you could do for many days consecutively, but I think it's just too much to do it every day.
Yeah, that's intense. But it's fascinating. It's fascinating what breath work does.
Yeah, it's totally.
So you've also talked about the gut, and prior to this recording, we talked about the gut and what you learned about the gut from your integrative herbalist program that you've been a part of for the last 5 years, and you've actually done a second one as well in that time. So you have two integrative herbalist programs that you are now graduate from. Can you get into that?
Yeah. So yeah, thank you. I've been studying herbalism for 5 years, and prior to that, I got a certification as a nutritional coach. So kind of like, yeah, building all of that. It went from like food to herbs to breath, which I feel like is going from like the more material to the immaterial. And I feel that all of them are super supportive of each other. And I like that you mentioned the gut. The first client I had with herbalism was myself because I was dealing with what I consider extreme gut issues that was creating huge inflammation, brain fog, like a ton of weird things. I did not feel like myself. I felt like I couldn't articulate myself like I wanted to. It made it hard to just connect with people in the same way I knew was natural to me. I felt like driving a car wasn't as safe because I just wasn't with it. And I was pretty certain a lot of that was gut related. And so through herbalism, I actually worked with my gut, creating like clearing, using a lot of herbs to clear that and to build the stomach fire and the hydrochloric acid or the chi, different languaging for it, which I had this isn't the most normal experience, I would say, or the most typical, but I had one experience where one day something just cracked open and I was going pretty hard on the herbs. I typically wouldn't go that intense on my clients. It was just because it was me I could experiment on. But I cracked one day and I had this huge surge of sadness and depression, and all I could do was just like cry all day essentially, which is not normal for me, and it didn't feel like me. And I think there was some sadness and pain and trauma stored in the gut, and it just all released at once, and things started to gradually climb from there with my health. So gut health, there's a book called The Brain Maker I read in that time, which was so good. It was just tying in with like how our gut actually does affect our thoughts and our mental processes in a big way. And a lot of things throw off our gut, like birth control even throws off our gut, for example. There's tons of things. So herbalism in a bigger sense, like gut health and digestive health is kind of a baseline, because if we're digesting, we're actually able to get our nutrients and remove toxins. That's a baseline for health. We need our good digestion. And herbalism is just such a powerful tool to address pretty much anything on the spectrum that people are dealing with, from like skin issues to digestion to even mental clarity, like I'm saying, cardio stuff, cholesterol stuff, breath, like even if people have breathing issues, like herbalism is just this also incredibly vast knowledge system. And that one's very old. And we're actually kind of picking up the pieces because a lot of that knowledge and wisdom has been lost, like literally burnt away with the burning times and all of that. So I think it's a service to this world to bring that knowledge back and to show how much we can do, even just with the weeds that are growing in our backyard as a starting point. There's just so much.
With the weeds in our backyard, what can we do with that?
Dandelion's cancer medicine. It's also really good for your liver, and a lot of people need a clear liver. The greens are just super nutritious. They're really bitter, but they work super nicely if you can flavor them well. You can eat the whole dandelion. You can eat the leaves, the flowers, the roots. But yeah, incredible medicine and like blood cleanser, all of that. And like plantain is like nature's band-aid. It's an antiseptic if you have a cut and all that. Plantain is not the banana looking fruit. It's actually a
Okay.
weed in Canada.
Thank you for specifying.
Yeah, I've had that confusion before. I think maybe even with you, Derek. I think I came up
Yeah.
about plantain. He's like, I love plantain. Yeah, those are two big ones, but there's tons. Those are just the ones that are incredibly common, but like motherwort was growing in my backyard, which is a total cardiac medicine. Nettle is huge blood cleanser and like really helpful for women's health, for example, and like boosting all of that as, yeah, it's like a source of iron and tons and tons of things.
Treasures just hiding in our backyards. It's just a matter of actually knowing what they are and what they do.
Yeah.
And how to use them. But it's fascinating.
The woods, like knowing the little plant friends that are around the woods, like it just changes your whole experience of being in nature. It's like, who am I going to see today?
Exactly. Yeah.
So Danielle, you've been on such an amazing journey that's taken you in so many directions and learnings. What advice would you give to a hero on that path that are feeling these callings to travel to Costa Rica or to take this breathwork class or to pick up a pen and draw, but they're feeling stuck in the mud, being pulled by those shoulds of parents, society, religion, culture that are keeping them in the familiar known to keep them safe, but not able to fulfill like what is true to them. What advice would you give these individuals to go for their win, to pursue their passion, to listen to their calling, as you have done?
It's so individual, everyone's blocks, right? And everyone's like personal circumstances. But I think it's a good thing, memento mori. Think about, the day that you exit this world. Would you be happy with the choices that you're currently making? And if not, what are the choices that would bring you such joy and make you feel like, yes, this was a life I lived on my terms? And ultimately, I believe that the only real gift you can give to this world is to be you on your terms in the most true way possible, while honoring, everyone else that's on the journey with you. So I feel like if you're going to really show up and give your greatest gifts in this world, it has to be on your terms. And every well-meaning person that loves us in our life cannot actually make those decisions for us. And at the end of the day, it's you that has to live with your own decisions. So yes, you might be making peace with someone else's wishes for you, but in the long run, that catches up, right? And so looking big picture and picturing yourself like, I don't know, 100 years old and you're on your way out, what would you be proud of, and not compromising for that? And if some of it feels inaccessible, just taking little steps towards that. MVP, right? Like if money's an issue, minimum viable product, work with your smallest means possible. Like drawing can just start with pencil and paper, for example. So allowing no obstacles to be an excuse and just starting where you can.
Wow, so much wisdom shared. I really appreciate that. That was great, Danielle. And to close every episode, we ask all our guests the final 3 questions. But prior to asking those three questions, I'd love for you to guide us through a little breath microdose of whatever feels called to you, just to kind of align Bianca, myself, and you, and all listening along on a similar frequency, a similar vibrations, that we could tackle those final three questions from a place of real fullness.
Nice. Let's go with the presence process. Is it's a system. I think his name's Michael Brown. I apologize if that's not actually his name, but it's a system that I resonate with, and it's a much bigger system, but it's very simple, and I like that one a lot. It's circular breathing through the nose, and you're breathing in like very fully, and then you exhale as soon as you're done the inhale, and then you inhale as soon as you're done the exhale. So you're not pausing, and you're just breathing through your nose. And when you breathe in, you say I in your head. I, breathe out, am, breathe in here, breathe out, in, breathe in this, breathe out now. So it's I am here in this now. And you're just breathing that rhythm. And it's sort of a mantra to keep you with it. And that practice alone can be really profound. In his system, he does it 15 minutes twice a day. And we don't need to do it for 15 minutes right now, but maybe for a couple minutes. And I find that's a really good tune up. Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be beautiful.
How long? 2 minutes? Okay.
Yeah, no, I love it. 2 minutes sounds great. And you can just start it off when you're ready, and then we'll follow along.
All right. So I'll get you to close your eyes and just tune into where you are right now and tuning into what's present for you. Maybe just seeing where your body's at. And when you're ready, starting with a big inhale with the I, and then following with the exhale. So I'll just get you on the rhythm, and then I'll kind of guide the mantra. So breathing in and out. And you can go as fast or as slow as you want. Just connect that inhale and that exhale and find your rhythm. You're breathing in equally and exhaling equally on both ends. And so when you breathe in, it's the I, and continue with am, here, in, this, now. One with every breath. And I'll just leave you be for a few moments. Maybe do one more cycle. If I am here in this now. And when you're ready, you can come back to the room.
Oh, all right. That was incredible, and that was just breathing. Thank you for sharing that. through all the highs and lows that is this life, Danielle, what has been the greatest life lesson that you've learned on your path thus far that you're called to share with us right now?
Ooh, the greatest. I think it does kind of come back to what we recently spoke about there, is like the not compromising, and that the way to serve in the greatest capacity is to be yourself and to follow your truth. And I actually more recently had a thought that it's ironic because people would think of it as like selfish to just focus on you. But in a way, if you're developing yourself to the maximum of your ability, you're actually giving in some way, because whatever you're pursuing is very likely a gift to this world if it's coming from that truth and that responsiveness to life as opposed to reacting. So yeah, the not compromising and offering your gifts, your unique gifts, and finding what those are and having the patience to let them develop, because they take time.
Patience is so key. In 3 words, how would you describe the experience you were having on this earth?
Exiting the matrix.
Brilliant.
I love that. We all need to get on that one.
Yeah.
It's super inspiring to hear you as an artist. Sorry, to see how you're doing that. It's such a good, it's so inspiring for me. I'm like, yes, exiting the matrix.
Thank you.
And for the final question, I'm going to play around with time. We played around with time and we examined your beginnings, the development of all these wonderful trails that you've continued to unravel. We're going to fast forward into the future, and we're going to be alongside an 85-year-old Danielle Keeners. Who is she? Where are you? Who are you surrounded by? What are you doing? And what is the legacy that you've left here in this plane?
How do I sum it up? I see some sort of temple and nature sanctuary devoted to art, education, community space, and preservation of ecological systems and medicines. I see just this amazing community of movers and shakers and creators and artists and savants and innovators, just like a big web of people all connected with this. I see, a huge wealth of resources and traditional and modern wisdom that's being like passed forward in a big way. Art that will hopefully outlive me for hundreds of years. I'm working on archival methods to make sure the paintings will last as long as they can. Just passing forward, hopefully, this beacon of inspiration that can outlive me in a big way. And that might come in the form of art and books and video teachings and the people, like the whole community at large, that's just going to blossom from that. And everything else, all the other unexpected surprises along the way that I can't possibly dream of.
So I'd just like you to feel into this 85-year-old Danielle Keeners for a moment longer, because she is you and you are her in this infinite now. And as we come back to this present day, that 85-year-old Danielle sends you a message. What does she whisper in your ear?
You got this?
Hell yeah, you do got this, Danielle. And I'm so happy to introduce you to everyone. This conversation. Be inspired as I have been, but any closing words to this conversation?
Sorry, it cut out for a second. Are you saying closing words?
Yeah, it cut out for me too.
Oh, yeah. I was just gonna. Yeah, just saying. Yeah, Bianca, do you have any closing words for this conversation?
Oh my gosh. Well, I'm soaking in the wisdom that you've shared today. There's such grand topics. We're talking about life and creativity and art, and that's embedded in everything we see and experience. I think that I would like to know, how can we give ourselves the gift of receiving your offerings? Where can we go to support you and also just get to receive some of the art you share with the world? How can we get in touch with that?
Thank you. I'm still developing my website. I want it to be even more immersive than it is, but my name, Danielle Caners, CANERS.com. And I'm on Instagram. That's where I'm kind of posting the more regular things. I'd love if people join my newsletter, which is in my contact page on my website, because that's my way of directly connecting, and I can share more intimately and not rely on social media all the time. And otherwise, like the herbalism and the breath work, I'm more doing by word of mouth. I haven't been promoting it online very much. So that can be just something people reach out to me individually for at info@daniellecaners.com, or just go on the website. Yeah.
Awesome. That's awesome. Yeah.
Beautiful. To close all these conversations. Absolutely. To close all these conversations, we bring our fist into the winner circle, a choice that we could all make. Welcome to the journey, heroes. Thanks for joining, Danielle. Thanks for joining, Danielle. And we'll connect with each other soon.
Definitely. Thank you both.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.